The scent of his aftershave, a fragrance I once adored, now clawed at the back of my throat, each inhale a fresh wave of nausea. I picked up the leather-bound journal, its familiar weight a cruel mockery of the security I'd felt. Inside, a meticulously crafted betrayal unfolded. Dates circled in red, times marked with precise detail, locations, all leading to her. My hands trembled as I traced the woman's name, a name that wasn't mine, a name that had stolen my future. The air grew thick, suffocating with the weight of his lies, each entry a venomous sting. How could the man who promised me forever do this? My heart shattered into a million pieces. We were Amelia and Daniel. For 7 years our love had been a symphony, a beautiful melody composed of shared laughter, quiet evenings, and a deep, unwavering commitment. He had always sworn that he was a one-woman man. We built a sanctuary, a haven from the world, where trust was the cornerstone of our existence. His word was his bond, or so I had believed. Exclusivity wasn't just a word to us, it was a sacred vow, a promise etched into the very fabric of our relationship. Now, as I stared at the tangible evidence of his deceit, I felt like the ground beneath me had crumbled. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the calendar across the room, shattering the facade of his carefully constructed life. But a strange calm settled over me, a need to understand the full extent of his betrayal. I needed to confirm my deepest fears, to assemble the fragments of this shattered reality and confront him with the unvarnished truth. The truth. It was a dangerous path, but I had to know. I had to know who he was and who I was now. I started with his phone. The lock screen, his background image, my face. A hollow reminder of a time when he had professed his love. I found the password, something he had always freely shared with me. I began to scroll through his texts, emails, calls, his secret life laid bare. I felt like a voyeur trespassing in a forbidden world. The messages were meticulously coded, hinting at secret rendezvous, stolen moments, and carefully planned deceptions. Every notification felt like a dagger twisting in my heart. There were numbers saved under false names. Messages that used pet names that were never used with me. There was one name that kept appearing, a single name that was not in the contact list, the name Chloe. The messages were intimate, filled with promises of a shared future. I saw pictures taken on our anniversary during our holiday. The pictures were of him and this Chloe. I was gutted. I knew without any shadow of a doubt that I had to know who this Chloe was. I had to see what she looked like. I had to know everything. I used his computer and searched for the name. I felt like I was walking down a dark alley with no way out. My pulse was pounding. I found her social media, a perfectly curated feed of a life that seemed to be a direct contrast to my own. Young, beautiful, carefree, with a life filled with travel. She appeared to have a carefree, exciting life, but also a life that had nothing to do with Daniel. Every photo was a punch to the gut, a reminder of the life I had believed we were building together. I saw the world in a different light. I began to build a fake profile, a ghost in the digital world. I would befriend her and learn the truth. I would learn her secrets. I would learn the full extent of her life with Daniel. It felt wrong, but I had to do it. The conversation started slowly. Small talk. I wanted to come across as a casual acquaintance, someone who had met Daniel briefly. She was friendly, open, and eager to share details about her life. She seemed eager to talk about Daniel. She fell for the bait. She talked about the exciting dates, the romantic dinners, the stolen kisses. Daniel had told her that we were separating. He had said that he was unhappy. He had even told her that he was looking for an apartment. I learned how he had promised her a future, a new life, a life away from me. He had painted a picture of a love-lost soul, a man yearning for happiness and connection. A man who was using me to fulfill his dreams with another. She spoke of the trips, the gifts. I saw pictures, things that she had shown to me. Pictures of her in hotels that we often went to. Pictures that she had posted online. My insides twisted. My breath became shallow. I learned about their code names, their secret meeting places, their rituals. Every detail confirmed my deepest fears, my worst nightmares. It was all carefully planned, a betrayal executed with precision. I had been played. I had been a fool. The day of the confrontation arrived. I walked into the living room, the very room where we had shared countless evenings, laughing and talking. Daniel was at his desk, oblivious to the turmoil that was brewing. He was in deep thought, focused on his computer screen. The world had not stopped spinning, but I was at the center of the world. I held the calendar in my hand. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of detachment. I felt nothing. I placed the calendar on his desk. His head shot up, his eyes wide with a mix of confusion and fear. He looked at me and then quickly looked at the calendar. He knew. I know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The simple words hung in the air, pregnant with unspoken accusations. The unspoken questions. He stammered, What do you know? He tried to act like he did not know, but the look in his eyes told me that he knew exactly what I was talking about. Everything, I replied. I know about Chloe. I know about your lies. I know about your betrayal. His face paled and he tried to protest. It's not what you think, isn't it? I challenged. You have a whole life. Dates, times, locations. You have been living a lie for months. Years. The pictures. The hotel bookings. The gifts. The whole charade. He stood up, his movements slow and deliberate. Let me explain. The explanation was a torrent of excuses, half-truths, and justifications. He said he was unhappy. He had become stagnant. He said he was bored with our life. He said that Chloe made him feel alive. He painted a picture of a man desperate for change. Each word was a fresh wound, each attempt at justification a further insult. He talked about his needs, as if my feelings didn't matter. As if he was incapable of controlling his actions. Did you love her? I asked the question, a knife twisting in my heart. He paused. The silence was deafening. He finally responded, I cared about her. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of his unspoken feelings. And me? I whispered. What about me? Did you ever love me? He stared at me, his eyes filled with a flicker of regret. Of course I did. I do. You are my wife. The words felt hollow, a weak attempt to soothe the damage. The argument raged for hours, a maelstrom of accusations, tears, and raw emotion. The aftermath was a slow, agonizing process. Grief. Sadness. Pain. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of uncertainty, unable to find solid ground. I tried to understand. The whys. How could he do this to me? I had asked that question so many times. Daniel tried to apologize. He took responsibility for his actions. He begged me to give him another chance. But I couldn't. The trust was shattered. The bond broken. I could never look at him or touch him in the same way. I could never believe in him again. I found myself questioning everything. Our history, our relationship, my own judgment. Had I been blind? I felt foolish, naive. I went through every shared memory looking for clues, looking for warning signs that I had missed. I went through the memories of my life, my childhood, my relationships. I was asking myself so many questions. I was lost. I started to isolate myself from friends and family. I found it difficult to explain the betrayal, the raw pain. It was easier to retreat into myself, to lick my wounds in private. The silence in our home became a suffocating presence. The once comforting routines became a painful reminder of the life we had lost. I was walking around the house like a ghost in my own life. The walls of the house started to close in on me. Daniel continued to shower me with apologies and flowers. But every gesture felt insincere, a hollow attempt to atone for his actions. The love I had for him had faded. It was gone. Replaced by a deep sense of disappointment, anger, and resentment. The days dragged on, filled with a sense of emptiness, a sense of loss. I didn't want to be around him. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't stand to be in the same room. I started to spend more time away from the house. I found myself focusing on work. It was my escape, a place to feel productive. The world was gray. I was the only one who was unhappy. I felt betrayed by him. I started to spend more time with my friends. The anger inside me started to burn. Months passed, the initial shock began to fade. I wanted revenge. I wanted to make him hurt the way he hurt me. I began to realize that staying was pointless. Staying was just a slow death. The decision to leave began to take shape. I could not stay. I didn't want to stay. Daniel kept trying. He tried to rebuild. He tried to convince me that things could go back to normal. He tried to convince me that he had changed. But I was not convinced. One evening we were sitting in the living room. The room was familiar, but it didn't feel the same. It felt empty. He looked at me and he started talking. He said that he loved me. He said, "We can work through this, we can start again." He had the audacity to say, "I love you." I didn't respond. I just looked at the TV screen. He looked at me and said, "I want you to know I am going to fix it." I was tired. I had heard all the lies, all the excuses. I had heard it all before. I had given him so many chances. I was done. I turned to him. "It's not enough, Daniel," I said, my voice flat, emotionless. He stared at me, his face a mask of pain and disbelief. "What do you mean?" It's over, I repeated. I can't stay. I stood up and walked to our bedroom. I felt like I was leaving another part of myself. He followed me, his voice filled with desperation. Don't do this. I can change. You can't change what you've done, Daniel. You've destroyed something precious, something that can never be repaired. But I love you, he pleaded. It's not about love anymore. It's about trust, honesty, respect. You betrayed me. I continued packing my bag. I had already packed most of the things that mattered. I had already left the house in my mind. He looked lost. I felt nothing. I picked up my bag and I walked out of the house. I didn't look back. I felt free. I was finally free.